Jeffries, first, will you endorse Kamala Harris? And then I have one other question for you.
Well, Leader Schumer and I are scheduled to meet with Vice President Harris shortly. The House came back into session today. The Senate does not come back into session tomorrow. I'm excited for that meeting. And let me say this, that Vice President Kamala Harris has excited the community. She's excited the House Democratic Caucus, and she's exciting the country. And so I'm looking forward to sitting down with her in person in short order with Leader Schumer, and we'll have more to say about the path forward as soon as that meeting concludes.
Quick question. What does President Biden need to do these final few months to ease the path to help, while he's in office, to ease the path to make it easier for Democrats to flip the House and to keep the White House?
Well, President Biden is going to continue to do his job. And he's put the country first. He's put the American people first. He's put hard-working American taxpayers first, which is what President Biden has always done. And as a result of his leadership, we've seen transformational change, fixing our crumbling bridges, roads, tunnels, airports, our sewer and water systems, rescuing the economy from the once-in-a-century pandemic, gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years, standing up for our veterans, bringing domestic manufacturing jobs back home to the country, and passing the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the largest investment in combating the climate crisis in the history of the world. We still have more work to do. We still have to lower costs. We still have to end price gouging. We have to continue to grow the middle class, defend democracy, and fight for reproductive freedom. President Biden will continue to do that job along with Vice President Harris and Democrats in the House and the Senate.
Leader Jeffries, this has been a few weeks of very intense discussions about Biden being at the top of the ticket. What light can you shed to the American public about the concerns that you conveyed to the president about staying on the top of the ticket?
It's a private conversation with President Joe Biden that will remain private.
Mr. Leader, I mean, there has been a lot of reporting about what was said and wasn't. So just for the record, can you just be clear? Did you ever tell the president that he could hurt Democrats' chances at taking back the majority if he stayed in the race? And secondly, what do you say to those, whether it's Ron Klain or congressional Republicans, who claim that Democratic Party leaders or elected officials pushed the president out?
President Joe Biden is a heroic, patriotic, and transformational figure. And he will go down in history as one of the greatest public servants of all time. That much is clear. I had a private conversation with President Biden to express the perspectives that were wide-ranging of the House Democratic Caucus. That conversation will remain private. In terms of my Republican colleagues, former President Donald Trump and extreme MAGA Republicans are having a meltdown right now. A complete and total meltdown. Why? Because their presidential nominee is unpopular. The extreme MAGA Republican policies are unpopular, including trying to impose a nationwide abortion ban on the American people. And their Project 2025 is unpopular. They're having a meltdown right now. All we want to do as Democrats is have a debate about moving the country forward and continuing to put people over politics.
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. This is a happy day. I mean, we were miserable a couple of days ago, having to deal with this Project 2025. Graham sprouted about it a couple of weeks ago. And we've all been talking about for the last 6 months what sort of autocracy we're going to, Putin's buddies, Netanyahu and Trump planning the genocide in Gaza. Now we have God step in, save Trump, save Trump from an assassination. Imagine, I said to my wife, I said, why did God save Trump? She said, she said, forgive me, God, but it would have solved a whole lot of problems. And a lot of people thought that. So I had the question, why did God save Trump? Possibly he would have
With the assassination have been divine intervention or a
what a
survival?
miracle.
Deus Machina.
But even more of a miracle, we've got a black woman becoming president of the United States. What kind of fantasy are we living in? Is it truly God's real? Do you think he'd come and bless us and give us real reparations? This is reparations for me.
Well,
You know, save the day.
Well, we were here in 2007
Yeah?
talking about a young brother named Barack Obama, who 3 years prior gave the address at the Democratic Convention.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember hearing him speak then. I couldn't even pronounce his name. I
Yeah.
said, who is this dude? This guy should be running for president.
Yeah.
And subsequently, 4 years later,
You saw
he
it.
was running.
You felt it.
And not only, I remember the euphoria that overtook people. And it wasn't just New York. It just wasn't black people. It was white people as
Yeah.
well. I went down to the inauguration, and my wife stood on the mall by the Washington Monument, and we're looking at the Capitol, and we're looking at down towards the White House, the sea of people, which was predominantly white people. White people made it possible for Barack Obama
Oh, yeah.
to be president.
Oh, yeah.
So the hearts and minds of people had to have changed to bring that to fruition. So the time was right. And I remember, real quick, Stafford Missick, who lived in Grand Turk, in the Turks and Caicos. I was at his home 20-something years ago. And he said that through the revelation of angels visiting his home, they had told him that the black man was going to reassume the position of leadership in the world, but he had to prepare himself. That was around 2000, So preparations are being made. In the background, just like this 2025, this thing that I've been talking about since early last year, the preparations were being made 4 or 5 years ago. They were working on this for years.
No, they've been working
So-
this forever.
We need to understand it. We need to be sitting, planning, and thinking. That's what think tanks are for. You do that in the background. You don't have to be up front, but it's the people in the background that determine who's going to sit on the Supreme Court. It's people in the background that are going to determine who is going to run for president. And we need to get this mindset in our minds for Kamala. You know, no one ever saw that coming. And I know Hillary Clinton is flipping out behind this now, you know, because she thought she had the golden ring. But to see Joe, and you remember the debate when she and Joe were debating a few years ago, and she attacked him over busing and how she was the girl that was affected by his decisions. And here it is that she now is being put forward by the leader to assume the lead. And no, he's not going to step down before the election. Because if he did that, according to the Constitution and the succession, the vice president would become Johnson, the Speaker of the House. And we could not have a Republican speaker of that ilk in office wreaking havoc behind her back while he was the vice president.
I think that Joe Biden has shown his diligence over the years, 50-something years in D.C. He has shown his intelligence in deferring to the people who are at the head of the Democratic Party. And he has showed that the people that he has chosen to back him up for all these years, including Kamala Harris, these people are more than appropriate for the leadership role as he steps aside. It's no surprise to a whole lot of people that Kamala Harris is qualified. Not many people are going to spend time arguing about her qualifications.
No.
She has been prepared. She has positioned herself appropriately in California, in Washington, D.C. She has done what is necessary. Quite frankly, we've seen folks of other races who are a lot less qualified step into the White House. So we have now a woman who will be carrying the banner and we will be supporting her here in New York. And I pray that people outside of New York who may see this broadcast will understand the importance of supporting her for her diligence and her competence that's been ongoing and proven for years and years.
This is not DEI.
No,
This is not DEI.
It has nothing to do with any
Yes, it
quotas.
is.
She's qualified.
No, it has
She's
nothing-
qualified.
no
This is not
quotas,
DEI.
no.
Not
This is-
DEI. Not at all.
Diversity.
It is not. The woman is qualified.
She's as
Period.
diverse a human as you
This
can
is
get.
not about that sick white agenda.
No, with
It's
that,
not-
This woman
No,
is
I'm talking about from
qualified.
the standpoint that she's half Asian, half Jamaican, and she's a real sister. She's had training under Joe Biden, who's a product of Barack Obama.
now you
8
sound like
years.
Donald J. That's probably half his campaign over the next 6 months,
What?
is what you're speaking.
Yeah.
That's probably
Well.
half his campaign is to convince people, oh, she's just there because she's the token minority.
No, I don't say token.
That's-
Eh.
She represents the people. That's what I'm talking about.
Let's not take their language and bring it into this situation because they when
It's
remember
all
when
how you take the.
you remember when Colin was taking a knee, they defined what his taking a knee meant. Don't let them define anything. Forget
That's not
about
what I'm talking
DEI.
about. I'm just
This
trying-
woman is beyond qualified to do the job. Has nothing to do with DEI.
we're not talking
she's,
about what
she's
they're-
highly educated. She's
I'm
experienced,
talking about what
and she
our-
has traveled the world and
I'm not
delivered
arguing
addresses
about that.
around
What
the
I'm
world.
the point is that she is diversified. She has all. I mean, never mind the negative input. I'm talking from a positive standpoint.
I'm just saying, let's not even
She's
take
of
their
the-
language. Don't even take their. Speak our language. She's a
I'm
Competence,
speaking-
experience.
That's their language. The DEI is their language. Let's focus on our
Follow my
language.
point.
My
follow
point
my-
is forget their language.
I'm
I'm not
forgetting
speaking their language. This
I'm
ain't about
speaking-
DEI. This is a sister who's educated, highly educated,
Prosecutor,
experienced,
senator.
and
I'm
can
not
handle the
arguing
job.
about that. I'm just saying from my standpoint. My standpoint, she is diverse, but she has every ingredients of a decent person, and all ingredients of a rounded racial tone. She has all sides within her. She's a human,
Thank
rather
you.
than judging by her. You're judging her by her character, not by the color of her skin.
Okay.
But
I've had a lot
every
of-
human is not qualified for that position.
Well, I don't. That's not my argument. My
Well, but
argument
that's
is we
what's-
got a decent human being here.
To a lot of voting Americans, your decency doesn't matter. To a lot of voting Americans, what they are looking for is they're looking for some reason to say, this woman is not one of us. And there's half of America that's lining up behind Donald J. to say, she doesn't look like us. And we have to deal with the fact that we have to promote and understand she is actually more intelligent than most of us. She's more experienced than most of us. She doesn't look like us, is what they're going to say.
Now,
We
do
say
you
that's
think
not a
we're
problem.
going to
She
get
looks
some
like.
argument about her being not black enough?
Some small-minded people are going to say that.
Oh, you got people running behind Trump too.
Yeah.
They're running behind Trump.
Yeah, all right.
Are they black enough?
What did they say
Well,
about Obama?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
And they will
A lot of
we can
black
expect
People in
People
New
didn't
York
like
said
Obama.
people in New York
A
said he
lot of
wasn't black
black
enough.
people didn't like Obama because his mama was white.
Yeah. But
Not
that
his
should
daddy.
not,
Black
that should not
leadership
affect the
had a
decision
problem.
of choosing
Daddy.
the next president of the United
His
States.
father was a native African.
Yeah. But you have
Awful.
black leadership in New York that didn't think he was black enough.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
I say scrape that off the bottom of your shoe and let's move forward.
Now,
That's
you
what
know
we
what's
argued about.
interesting?
8 years ago, we argued about that.
But I'm talking about we might have an argument about this one.
No, we won't. We're going to
But wait.
focus on credentials, experience, talent, demonstrated
You think
abilities.
we've learned our lesson from Obama?
Certainly, I think enough of us have done that.
I
Enough
got
of us.
some mail. I got some mail a week ago from my union, right? From the Detectives Endowment Association. Listen to this, and I'm telling you, folks. Listen to what I'm saying. They sent out a poll to the membership, all the detectives in New York City and the retired detectives, as to who they should back as a presidential candidate. Now, this is before Joe Biden stated he wasn't going to run. So it was between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, right? I got the letter and I'm looking at it. You're asking me if there is a choice here? This is the Detectives Endowment Association of the New York City Police Department asking me if a convicted felon should be endorsed by our union? You're asking me and the other
law enforcement
30-some-odd
expert.
thousand men, you're asking if law enforcement should endorse a convicted felon.
Yeah.
Now, if the leadership,
And call January 6th
yeah, some
Incitement
tourists,
to riot.
some tourists.
insurrectionist
Now,
patriot.
if this is the leadership that's going to take advisement from the membership, see, leaders have to lead in spite of at times, because a parent should know more than the child. A leader should know more than the membership. But your common sense, your moral decency should tell you, and this is the first time they ever sent a poll out. Your moral decency, first time. Your moral decency should have told you, don't even send this out.
It must have been Republican sending it
Okay?
out.
So I am going to respond to the president of the union.
Is he a
Because-
Republican?
I don't know what he is. He don't look like us. But
Okay.
if you have to ask that question, I have a question with you and your leadership, because that's not a question to even be asked. It's not about asking the people that. It is what is right and what is wrong. We might as well now turn around and support all felonious behavior in the state or in the nation. This is ridiculous. But they had the audacity to send that out as a poll. So, folks, I want you to understand, and ultimately they're going to have to do another poll because Joe Biden is not running. But we'll see if they do the poll, and I'm going to let you know so you know
What do
where
you-
the detectives of NYPD
What do you
stand on the
think?
issue.
How do we get here? Now, Joe Biden was a candidate, and he did badly in the one debate, and everybody ran for the hills. I mean, Democrats ran for cover. One bad move, and everybody deserts you. Now, where'd the weakness come from? I say it's from Gaza. I know I had some second thoughts about how he dealt with Netanyahu. I don't like him being buddy-buddy with Netanyahu, hugging him. I mean, they've been friends all these years. I mean, how could you associate with a white supremacist? What is it? The name of the movement he's from?
Oh, the
MAGA?
Zionists.
MAGA?
The Zionists. The Zionists.
Colonists?
Well, a lot
White
of people don't.
supremacists?
A lot of people don't understand what Zionism is or where it comes from. But that's critical. That we need to understand that the battle for the presidency that's upcoming is something that people have to vote their best interests. It's not about who's the nice guy and who's the bad guy. No, it should not be about whose skin color is this and whose skin color is that. It should not be. It should be about our interests. It should be about our children's education and schooling. It should be about health care. It should be about the aged and aging in our community. It should be about housing in places like New York City, where housing is so difficult and so expensive. That should be us voting our interests. In New York City, I think we've already demonstrated that New York City voters are progressive and they know how to vote our own interests, ultimately looking beyond a person's skin color. What we have to deal with now is New Yorkers should be calling their friends and relatives in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Georgia, in Houston, Texas. We should be calling our relatives in those out-of-state places to make sure that they vote their interests. Don't get bamboozled by some idiot who's going to talk about race. Don't get bamboozled by some idiot who's going to stand up in front of people and brag about what he sees as his ability to entertain us. No, don't get distracted by that. We have to vote our interests. And as long as we can get enough people to vote our interests, it's not a problem what happens in November, because we know what's going to happen if intelligent people vote our interests.
And the main thing I want black people to concentrate on is to realize what the Willie Lynch syndrome has done to us as a people.
Ouch.
How, you know,
Yeah.
It still hurts.
because I had a young kid in my in my office complained about a brother who was light-skinned, almost looked, he looked Puerto Rican, but he was annoyed, and this is a dark-skinned brother, he was annoyed that he didn't look black enough. He was acting black. And he was speaking with enthusiasm and dedication to being a black man. And this brother didn't think he should be talking like that. I looked at him like he was crazy. But this brother actually felt that way. He's not my hue. And not even that, he had to be his hue in order to speak like a black man. Now, this comes in all shades. This is our own self.
We've been taught to hate ourselves.
Self-hate.
For
What
hundreds of years.
Willie Lynch brought to the plantation was how to control the slaves. Young against old, light against dark, and they would rape the masses to put their hue in there and treat them better than the other hue, so they would have control.
Can you imagine anyone would be stupid enough to watch this show, and if one brother speaks, we're going to say, oh, no, he's too dark, I'm going to turn it off. If another brother speaks, oh, no, he's too light, I'm going to turn it off.
Would you believe people still feel that way?
Yeah.
Anyone who watches this show, I refuse to believe that people who watch this show are that stupid and that small-minded. Because it doesn't matter. It should not matter. The competence of the brothers who are here has been demonstrated. And anybody tells me that the hue of your skin is part of what I'm going to measure you by, that person I need to back away from.
Stupid people only come white, too.
Well,
There's some dumb black people out here.
Dumb everything.
I wish I could say you're wrong, Brother Gilchrist.
Come in all shades.
I wish I could say you're wrong, but I know that it's a painful truth that you're right.
I'm concentrating on what our problem is.
We have to get past that and get our children past it. Because if our children were to sit down in the room and argue about their daddy's color,
spiritual people.
Nonsense.
The spirit doesn't have a color. God doesn't have a color.
That's right.
And he comes in all shades. He's for all humans.
Well,
so if you're a demon, then we're against you. So what we're going to do to give people a little education of what we were up against before Kamala popped in, and God blessed us with reparations. I see this as a saving grace for us as a people.
We have an opportunity.
But we have to learn our problems.
Yes.
Because we have a woman in there that can change everything. She can change the planet because she has the exposure, experience.
Intelligent, competent leader.
And she's a woman.
But remember, just as O'Connell and the Republicans said the day that Barack Obama was inaugurated, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that nothing is accomplished. But they will do the same thing. That's their agenda. We need to know that they're not changing.
Project 2025
they're not changing.
It's there. They're reading it, and some of them are already following it.
I'm going to show you what Project 2025 is about. It might be boring to you, but stay tuned. Just pay attention for a few minutes here. It's kind of long. You got 5 minutes here. But educate yourself of what we're up against. And I want you to thoroughly understand it. And we're going to break it down after we watch it. Pay attention, please.
He's been trying to distance himself during the Republican convention from a plan called Project 2025. The Heritage Foundation, a conservative group, outlined the details of the plan, which include overhauling the federal government. This is what Trump said about it in Michigan. What he said about it yesterday in Michigan.
Like some on the right, severe right, came up with this Project 25, and I don't even know. I mean, some of them I know who they are, but they're very, very conservative. And they come up with this, I don't know what the hell it is, it's Project 25.
E.J. Fagan is an assistant producer at the assistant professor at the University of Illinois in Chicago. Joins us to talk more about 2025 Project from Heritage. E.J., good to see you. President Trump claims he doesn't know anything about this, but the people writing this thing, E.J., are, some of them former, Trump associates. So what are we to make of these denials?
Yeah, this is not just former Trump associates. We're talking about very senior level people in the Trump administration, people who play both policy roles in the Trump administration and staffing roles in that administration. The Heritage Foundation previously hadn't hired. There was an outside organization. It hadn't hired people like this to do its policy planning for the next Republican administration. But for the Trump administration, pretty much everybody that was hired to write Project 2025 was a part of the first Trump administration, and I think we should expect them to be a part of the second. And in the first one, Trump implemented more than 60% of the recommendations in that 900-page document. And so I think there's every reason to expect we'll see it again.
What was interesting about this was that when I was in Milwaukee over the past couple of days, I actually saw the Republican platform, and it was, it could have been a pamphlet handed out. Project 2025 is 900 pages, and it gets into things like the look of the civil service, which is going to affect a lot of people throughout DMV who work in the federal government. What are they actually going to do if this were to ever be implemented?
There's 922 pages of policy recommendations. And so there's a lot that they would do. And they're very specific, right? So you read that platform, it's a list of Trump tweets, right? It's direction, it's vibes. It's not promises. It's not, specific things we usually see presidential candidates do. They put out white papers, they write those platforms. The only Republican plan that we have right now for the next administration is Project 2025. And, it's very specific. It's not just, we don't like the Department of Education. It's here's 10 things we can do to, to make the Department of Education much more conservative. Or here's 10 different ways that we can outlaw abortion or we can fire civil servants.
So, E.J., what's different about this than a traditional transition plan?
Sure. Well, in many ways, it's similar to a traditional transition plan. The Heritage Foundation has done this for every Republican administration, every presidential election since 1980. It's much larger. And it's not just the Heritage Foundation this time. They've assembled a group to help staff the next Trump administration. That's a list of the most far-right organizations in Washington, D.C. It's not former Bush administration officials. It's not people from places like the Chamber of Commerce, the American Enterprise Institute. Right. It's that part, the Trump part of the Republican Party, and they're prepared to give Donald Trump thousands of appointees that he can appoint as soon as he becomes president again, if he becomes president again.
E.J. Fagan is a University of Illinois professor in Chicago. We appreciate you joining us live today on Fox 5's On the Hill.
There are people who are planning, who have already enacted plans that they can make sure this Project 2025 goes forward. The number of judges who are sitting, we're talking hundreds of judges who are sitting on the bench who already have been appointed and approved under the Trump administration. They're going to be they're backed up by the Heritage Foundation.
The three Supreme Court justices were
These are people, they're in position,
recommended by the Heritage Foundation.
They're in position where they're going to be pushing through things that's going to affect every last one of us. From people who talk about integration as being some sort of cultural Marxism, to people who talk about the goals of our community should be just to hire American, meaning don't hire anybody who doesn't look like you. That's the code that's in there. We should be hiring only American. And when we have people in decision-making positions who have that attitude, we have to realize they're not waiting till election day. They are acting on that right now, and they're preparing for when they're sworn into office so they can enact those policies under the headline of Project 2025.
There are, I've been reading up on the Heritage Foundation for a number of years, and I don't believe they any longer list their members on their website. I'm going to go back and check, but
there's a list of contributors to the document, but that's separate from the members.
Members who are legislators, congresspersons, senators, heads of colleges and universities who are in the game to reshape the thinking of our young people. All right? We need to understand that higher education is not about education. It's about giving you a mindset to keep the status quo going the way it is. And if you're not willing to step out and do what is necessary for your people, you will become my problem. ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, is another one.
Alec?
ALEC,
Yes.
A-L-E-C.
They've been around for quite a few years.
Long time. And they work with corporations, buying off the legislators to enact laws that will help them. You hear when Trump says, drill, baby, drill, and this and that. See, we have got to start studying and forget about sports and entertainment. When the Supreme Court said in 2014 that the Voting Rights Act, the review of the process was no longer needed, that the Southern Confederate states no longer needed to be monitored in terms of how they were affecting the vote as it deals with blacks and non-white people. The Supreme Court said we don't have to do that anymore. Reagan was an advocate for that.
Yeah.
The court said, nah, forget about that. We don't need that anymore. They also said that corporations are people.
Right.
Corporations are people. So what does that mean? You have
have
politicians being bought off by corporate heads to get the legislation they want so that they can turn around and pollute or do whatever they want to do. There was something on the news today, and it's been in the news recently, about the chemicals that are in the hair straightening stuff. It's been giving women cancer. The FDA knows about formaldehyde and these other chemicals that black women are putting in their hair, and the dyes, and God forbid, the dyes, all that orangutan red that women are wearing, that goes into your scalp. They have found that dye not only in your skull, but in the tissue of the brain. The FDA has not said that this needs to be stopped. Why? Because who is it affecting? It's affecting black women who are trying to whiten themselves to look like white people.
We're being self-destructive.
So you have these organizations that are protecting corporations, allowing them to make money at the expense of the lives of people. Because remember, the United States is a capitalist nation. Money is their God. They don't care who gets hurt in the process. ALEC, the Heritage Foundation, which runs with the right-wing Christian nationalist groups, all of these people, you've got to sit down and look at this, because this 900-page document, they rolled it out on them in Florida with the book bans.
Okay.
That was a test.
The boards of education cannot use the books that would uplift the children or teach them about our heritage.
Anything about black history. Oh, you don't need it. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to have a book. Forget about these phones and computers. You need to be compiling libraries for yourselves and your children, because anybody can alter what's in this computer. Anybody can alter the information. When you have the printed word in front of you, you can compare it and see where the errors are. It's very important. It is very important.
Well, I don't think we should eliminate any of the modern technology, but to learn how to
I'm not saying
verify.
that. You need to have the printed material.
Well,
You need to have the printed material. Just like you couldn't get on the subway the other day because the computers went down. Everything in here is not
that's
truthful.
why I'm saying keep up with the modern day technology.
We have to keep up, and we have the obligation to make sure that our children are able to keep up, because one of the things that's happening is the information that our children have access to is limited by their not being technologically savvy. So people who are not in our community are learning everything from how to produce foods using less water, all up into learning how to control population increases. There are people who are getting doctorates in these fields who have nothing to do with our community, but we're going to be affected by the things that they're teaching. So our children need to understand there is a need for a college and post-college education, so our children can protect our community. They can, in some ways, build up what we need instead of falling prey to educators who don't have our best interests at heart.
Well, you know, we elders always referred, I know I do, refer to how we were raised and how far we got away in life with our own experiences of all these different anti-black, anti-human endeavors out here in the world. So I'm talking about the youthful mind that comes up today, looking at Kamala Harris running for president. It's a new dawn. It's a new dawn. We have to change our ways as elders. We've got a new horizon here. Now, we've studied the enemy. We know what he's about. We know how we got here. How did we get here? Biden made a mistake and didn't handle Gaza properly. We lost votes in the middle states, and everybody got scared. He didn't handle it properly. I mean, this genocide in Gaza was a human thing, and he didn't act right. I mean, on my account, that's what made me angry with him. I was not going to not vote for him, but he lost a lot of people that didn't like. He not only needs my vote, he needs the American vote.
He needs their votes, right.
He needs to cover everybody. It's not one color, it's all colors, all humans.
How many people in our community under age 25 do you think would even understand what you just said?
A lot of them understand death
Some
and
people
genocide.
who are educated, some people who are politically savvy.
They're not
And
paying attention?
I'm suggesting that most of our people are not politically savvy, and most of our people are not educated.
I bet you
to be able to,
Kamala Harris running for president.
That's the challenge. That's the challenge.
Suddenly they woke up.
Would they
Now
back her
they're
up?
paying attention. Now we have their attention.
Now
What do you do? Complain about the past?
We tell people, now we have their attention. We tell them about Project
We
2025.
have to tell them what the Project 2025 is, a dead on arrival. Now we're making people aware of them, but we make sure that Trump doesn't get in there. So he's claiming not to know it. Why does he do that?
Please. He didn't know about. He didn't know about the what's the guy's name from the Ku Klux Klan, Dukes. He didn't know about who is he? What he doesn't know about
So he's a puppet.
These radical
He's a
white ring
puppet.
groups. Of course. But
he's
Netanyahu
Putin's
is
bee.
coming to meet with
Now,
Biden tomorrow. I think sometime this
Today.
week. Today, and then he's going to Mar-a-Lago tomorrow. All right. So he's playing both sides of this coin.
And we know whose friend he is.
Definitely.
Now, what is Kamala going to do when she's in this meeting? I'm sure Biden's going to have her there. She's going to shake him up.
Yeah.
She's going to say, you're going to get out of this room until you agree to a ceasefire. If I know Kamala.
My question is, why is Putin interested in meeting with Donald Trump?
You mean Netanyahu?
Netanyahu.
Same
Why is he
thing.
meeting
Now,
with
that's a Freudian
Donald?
slip.
Donald Trump is an ex-official of the United States. He's not currently a government official. He's not a maker of public
He's running
policy.
for president.
He's a candidate. And why is a foreign leader coming here to meet with a candidate?
Because
Because
they're
American,
They're buddies.
This is part of what we have to
But
ask.
wait now.
They're buddies.
Wait. Obama went to Germany while he was running. Remember, he went to Germany and met with, I forgot her name. And the people were going wild. The crowds, they couldn't believe. They said, how does this black guy get to Germany? He's got all these people rushing to meet him. You know, but Merkel, he met with
Angela Merkel.
right, in 07. He did the same thing. You know, and Netanyahu is going to hedge his bets. Because
How come you can't compare the two?
No, but
Netanyahu is a genocide.
he is a
demon.
genocidal maniac, and so is Putin. The two of them, all right? But
Okay.
let's look at who Trump admires.
That's why he's coming here.
Thank you.
That's why
He has to
but he's
address
got to
Biden
meet a
because
black woman. What do you think he's going to do?
just the same,
I want
She
to see the
can set the
expression on his
tone.
face when he sits there next to Kamala, and she tells him, "I want a ceasefire. You can't leave the room."
and Joe said he wants a ceasefire. The fact is,
Exactly.
this is about oil and gas
And we know
because the
that.
resources are there.
Well,
So-
maybe you don't know out there, but this it's all about money. Now I say take that gas and oil, and you have a two-state solution, and you share the wealth.
The two-state
They're
solution,
not gonna
right
do
there is
that.
where you lose the
But
Zionists
I mean,
and
what,
you lose
what would
Netanyahu.
Kamala suggest? I mean, she's a righteous person. I gave you a solution to the ceasefire.
the
Ceasefire,
resources
take the wealth,
are in Gaza.
share between the two states.
The resources are in Gaza.
I know.
They're
So
not in Israel. They're in
but
Gaza.
The Gazans are going to share the wealth with the Israelis.
They've offered that years and years and years.
Not the
And
Israelis taking it all.
Well, the Israelis
They-
keep saying
why
this
did
piece
they
isn't big
bomb?
enough.
Why did they
want a
bomb
bigger
the
piece and a big-
entire length of Gaza?
We know.
Talking
That's-
about, we're
that's
looking for
Netanyahu.
these. They cannot
want the
go back
ports, they
in the
want the
land.
natural
There is
resources.
nothing there for them to go back to. There is no infrastructure for the people of Gaza to return to. Netanyahu has wiped
Ceasefire.
it off the map.
Marshall Plan
intentionally.
for Gaza. A Marshall Plan for Gaza.
And that would be paid for by,
The oil and gas from Gaza.
oh, it's going to be coming out of your pocketbook too.
No, I'm saying initially we're giving
Exxon
$2 billion
is over
a
there
year.
waiting.
We're
Exxon
giving
is
$2
perched
billion a year to Israel. We're giving $2 billion a year
They
for
used
them
to get
and
a
bombs.
third of our foreign aid budget. A third they used to get,
So you cut it
as
out.
though they needed it.
Or you change the government and Israel. Nobody wants Netanyahu there.
Oh, wait a minute.
Nobody wants-
Wasn't he looking at jail time like Trump is looking at jail time?
Exactly.
But we have to understand
Exactly.
the forthcoming American presidential campaign. We have to understand that for our voices to be heard, we have to vote, and for our voices to drown out the warmongers and the profiteers on the other side of the world, we have to make sure that people on this side of the Atlantic will be voting in ways that are consistent with our interests. Now, it may sound like it's ultranationalism, but if we have people in New York City who are on a 3 or 4 year waiting list to get into public housing, I would question how much money, how much time should we spend talking about Gaza? Because New Yorkers here have needs. People in Houston, Texas, dealing with the results of the bad weather and elsewhere. You know, we have people here with needs. People on the Gulf Coast, people in California, people who have these needs here in the United States, they have to be addressed. And we need to understand some of it is distractions by politicians so they can neglect things here at home. And some of it is also an interest with the joke is they're building mansions on the moon for who to go live in. Their interests are outside the United States because they know it's something they will be benefiting from. We have to deal with our
who can
needs
change all
here
this?
in the U.S. We can
Kamala?
change this
Kamala can change all this.
if enough people listen to her and vote for
Well,
her. Yes.
then they know their vote counts for something.
Yes.
Now
And I
we
think
have
she's
a
articulate
different.
enough to
we
say
have a
that.
different world now.
Education.
We know if you vote, here's your power, right here. That's your power, your vote, and it counts. It counts for something to make everybody human.
You know, they
Greed
want.
and selfishness disappear. How is that
That's
possible?
human nature.
No, that's built into every
Partially?
last one of us. You know, they talk
Well, if
about
you're greedy and
schools.
selfish, think about yourself then. You're not
Well-
going to get anywhere. Black people in particular, or poor people, or people that are doing badly, you know, vote Democratic.
Now you sound like our friend the Reverend, because you're calling people to a humanism that is beyond popular politics. You're calling people
Whoa.
to be caring about each other. That's part of what you
Does
are.
God go for that? Does
Yeah.
God
Ooh.
condone that?
This is part
Well,
of
my
what you're
name
saying.
is Gilchrist. It means worship of Christ.
Oh,
I'll tell
okay.
I'm trying to bring out the Christ in me.
Okay.
I'll tell you, Reverend. you and I know a few reverends who say the same thing, and they sometimes are
Hey.
pushed aside. They sometimes would get stabbed in the chest. They sometimes are locked up for years.
Hey.
So that we know that they're standing up and doing the work of God.
If I go
it doesn't
out-
always get you the praise that you
If I
deserve.
go out, I want to go out right. I'm going to go out happy.
Well, we are here,
I'm gonna
and
keep my wife happy. I have a happy wife, happy
yeah,
life.
happy life.
Start laughing, Bev.
we have 200 years worth of experience at this table.
Amen to
We
that.
understand why we sacrifice. We understand why we fight. Now, there are some young bucks, 20 years old, they don't understand what we're talking about. A bunch of old men that they don't understand us.
Save
Our
yourself.
challenge is to make it
Save
clear
yourself
so
and
young
make
people will
Kamala
understand what
president.
we're saying.
Vote. Now you got something to vote for.
Yes.
Kamala Harris.
Mm-hmm.
The first black or colored.
Oh.
Colored.
Well,
We'll
she's
call her
East
colored.
Indian and African, yes. Oh, yeah.
DEI.
Remember, you know, this document, they're talking about education, wherein, you see, years ago, schools were funded by the government, totally. Then they came up, well, they didn't want integration, so the Southern Baptists built church schools.
Yeah.
They're looking to go back into that
With
by
the-
defunding education in some sense.
Yeah, private.
And
Make it
doing private. Well, people have a right to have their child go to whatever school they want. That's segregated education. That's what they're looking to do. And you got to be careful with the advent of these other schools we have now, charter schools.
Yeah, charter schools, yeah.
That's another thing you got to be careful of. The project is all about taking the black race 150 years back. It's about reinstalling the rebellers, the people who rebelled in 1860, along with the people that rebelled in 2020, and reinstating them. Trump said he would give pardons to these people. All right, you had police officers, you had elected officials that were involved and convicted. He's about restoring them fully to take back positions. And in the process, as in 1877, the black leadership that we had in the U.S. Congress was wiped out. Restoration was done with. The Klan came into fruition. Black people's property was taken from, and you have farmers today that still don't get their farm subsidies from the federal government, while big companies are taking in money.
Who got the reparations?
This is all right. This is a repeat. It's a repeat of what has happened before. And Samuel Tilden, the governor of New York, called for white men to come to Washington in 1877 because of the balloting, and he didn't trust the balloting in 1877. This Trump is not.
Did he ask them to storm the Capitol and to urinate on the desk of the Speaker of the House?
We've been through this
I'm getting
before.
confused.
You see,
I'm getting these.
But we're not paying attention, and we're not looking at history. So all of these things, they're going back, they're looking through stuff. This is what think tanks do. They're planning. They're planning 5 years down the road. Black people are just living. And we think we're supposed to respond and march as opposed to prepare ourselves. Sun Tzu in The Art of War said you need to know your enemy. You need to know your enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and you need to know your own as well. Napoleon was defeated because he went into Russia in the wintertime. You can't go in Russia with a fighting force in the winter. They froze to death.
So did Hitler.
Are we prepared for Project 2025?
Hitler did the same
Are we
thing.
walking out into the winter snowstorm in our shorts and sneakers?
You have 110 days to read 900 pages.
No, well,
It is critical.
You got even more of a time to be happy and vote for Pam. Miss Harris. Mrs. Harris.
Because that agenda is still be going, whether she's president or not. They're still going to be working on that agenda.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to counteract it.
So you have to make sure you vote.
So
You
your
don't wanna see this
congressman,
garbage
your
coming-
senator, all your state legislators, all of these
Everybody.
things is part of the plan.
We are a New York-based show. The people that we know who are critical that are going to be voting are in Florida, they're in Pennsylvania, they're in Texas,
Michigan.
parts of California, Michigan. These are people that you who watch this show need to speak to your neighbors about what it is that's happening so they're prepared for the November elections. New York is a given at this point that New York is voting Democratic. There are other states that have become critical linchpins that we have to talk to our people in these other states so they understand this conversation, so they understand the threat before it comes to them.
Well, I appeal to everybody on the planet. You can get us on www.mnn.org, Channel 1, throughout the planet. So anywhere on the planet you can see this show.
The Gilchrist
So
experience.
did I reach everybody? No, Graham's got stories of him being in Africa and them saying they saw him on the Gilchrist experience.
That's the value of the internet. The internet is more than just watching half-naked people and playing games.
Thank you.
But some of our young people haven't understood that yet because they're still into the half-naked people and playing games. But there are more important uses to the internet that we need to illustrate and we need to demonstrate to our children. You can be partners with somebody in the middle of Kenya. You can work to free someone who is in jail in Houston. You can be participating in plans for a spaceship to Mars. These are things you can do at home using the internet, or you can just sit there being silly and waste your time.
Or don't follow the Willie Lynch syndrome and think that you can't do anything. You are a human, and you need to absorb all the knowledge of the planet and be what God has called you to be.
A purpose-driven
We're all
life.
human. We're all human. We have to absorb this life and live it righteously. And what's your calling? Your calling is to vote for Kamala Harris this year and see what happens.
Between
See
now
if
and then,
God
talk to your
doesn't
neighbors and
answer your
friends.
prayers.
So get them to get your neighbors and friends.
This is a blessing from God. This change up from Joe Biden. Joe Biden knew what to do. There was a threat, and what did he do? He turned to his second in command. And look how she's blossomed. I had a couple of videos of her that have made you happy, but I left them home.
Boo.
Next week I'm going to double up. My first time in this studio on 38th Street, so I'm not at my normal spot on Hunt and Ford.
Leroy.
So,
Yes.
Leroy. We have some losses.
Rest in peace, Brother
Michael.
Leroy. Rest in peace, Attorney Michael Hardy,
save that for
warrior
next
in the courtroom for years and years and years. People who have never met him, have never heard his name. Michael Hardy fought for years so they can get housing, they can get jobs, they can get justice. He was a warrior on the battlefield. Rest in peace, Brother Hardy.
the most kind-hearted lawyer I've ever met.
Yeah, he was a decent man in spite of the fact that he was a lawyer. He still managed to be a decent man.
I mean, we found a good cop and a good lawyer. You know?
Oh, we worked up in Poughkeepsie during the
Yeah.
trial with Maddox, Mason, and Sharpton. And
Yeah.
that's when I got to deal with Mike up close. And Jeff and Alton on a daily basis. But, you know, and this is why it's important for our youth
Yes.
to understand.
They need to know
because
these heroes.
These batons have to be passed.
Yes.
We're not holding something for ourselves.
Yes.
We need young people who are properly trained, who are thinking about not just themselves, but about their community. And for people at large to make this world a better place. We need solid attorneys, we need doctors, we need lawyers, we need street sweepers, we need painters, we need sheetrock. We need people, as Martin said, to be the best of whatever you are.
And Leroy, I mean, he was
Man.
a contributor to this show for the last 15, maybe even further than that. And I knew him as a kid, at 16. Me and my wife, we hung out on the same corner, not hang out. We had a social gathering, the Sugar Bowl.
The Sugar Bowl, yeah.
In the 50s. And Leroy and I were 2 days apart in age. I mean, those who watched the show remember how we celebrated our 83rd birthday just this past April. But Leroy is gone and is surely missed. I'm running a lot of his old shows, so if you see him often on the Gilchrist Experience, that's why. And we
Black
haven't
man,
done
black man.
Black man, black man. And he was a Muslim, and we grew up, he grew up Catholic.
Yeah, yeah.
But Elijah Muhammad touched his heart, and that whole movement, his argument between him and I were always about Malcolm and Martin, who were the clashing heroes of our history. I mean, you have a little Malcolm in you, you have a little Martin in you, and that's how you survive in this world.
Right.
A little bit of each. You take in all our heroes, and I take in Gil Noble, and that's my hero.
Gil.
I always wanted to be a Gil Noble. Sit out there. And I sit here today and so try to be like Gil. Yeah.
Continuation and legacy. Again, it's critical that our children understand that. You know,
It's critical that you latch on to righteousness. Like my father always taught me, try and be fair with people. And I, to this day, I carried it in my heart. I try to be fair with people. And if we could all just possibly just keep that basic principle, and I'll be fair about this election, who's going to benefit you the most? Who's going to give you what you need is to be treated like a human. Be a decent human being. That's what we're put on this planet to do. Be decent to one another. Love your neighbor. That's in all religions, all colors. They're not one, it's not different colors. We're all human.
Right.
We need aliens to come down here and show us the difference.
The day the earth stood still.
Oh, that was a good one.
Klatu, God, Barado, Niktu.
58.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
But we are still in the struggle.
Amen.
It's not going to end. And I cannot hold you back and go forward at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's what this nation needs to understand. You know, Trump is talking about getting rid of the Spanish-speaking people. You know, we're going to just get these people out. Again, he's not coming up with anything original. They had what was called the wetback program under Eisenhower in 1953. And they took American citizens who happened to be Chicanos, seized them on the streets of California, Arizona, New Mexico, and bust them into Mexico and left them. And these were people that were born here, that owned property, worked, and had businesses. This is where Trump's head is at. This is where the thieves, see, thieves don't share. If a pirate loots another, if pirates loot a ship, they take the bounty for themselves. They're not sharing it with anybody. These folks, Trump fails to realize his family came here from Germany in the late 1890s. His grandfather was kicked out of Germany because he didn't want to serve the motherland in the military. So he too is an immigrant. Everybody is an immigrant.
His grandfather ran a
And he was in the sex trade.
Canada.
He was in the sex
He
trade.
made all his money
Women
in a
and
brothel
children.
running
Right. Made
in
$500,000
Canada.
in 1895.
To each his own, but your own better be righteous.
Yes,
Just take it and keep it in mind. But this election is important to everybody, every human on the planet, because this project 2025 is not, doesn't need to come anywhere near close to fruition. And so, again, this has been a Gilchrist experience. And by next week, we'll have more to say about dealing with death and how it affects you and how you have
Rest
to
in peace.
brace yourself for
Michael
the good people
Leroy.
that leave you suddenly and or knowingly. Love is hard to deal with.
Clemson Brown, rest in peace.
When you blame God for it. You know?
Norma Butcher, my mother-in-law, passed Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Peace. The God in me loves the God in you.
Amen.